Hello everyone, myself Dr. Ruchika Pal, Assistant Professor in Suresh Gyan Vihar University of Department of Physiotherapy. Today we will discuss about the topics rickets. It is related to the orthopedics and I will discuss about the rickets topics. So the learning objectives of this topic or of the online classes to enhance the quality of learning and teaching, to meet the learning style or needs of students, improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the topic, and improve user accessibility and time flexibility to engage learners in the learning process. So this is the learning objectives of the online classes which we are going through or which we are sharing on the YouTube channel of our Gyan Vihar department of Suresh Gyan Vihar University. Now, if we talk about the rickets, so we will discuss about the rickets. So that is what is rickets and what are the benefits or what are the background, what are the etiology, what are the pathology. So this is about rickets. So rickets is a bone disorder. It is caused by deficiency of vitamin D, calcium or phosphate. So it is a disease of a growing bone that is unique to children and adolescent. So rickets mainly affected the children and the adolescent. It is caused by failure of osteoid to calcify in a growing person. Failure of osteoid to calcify in adult is called osteomalacia. So if we talk about rickets, so it is a rickets and osteomalacia. Both are the disease where the organic matrix of the bone fails to calcify properly, leaving large osteoid seams. Manifestation of two diseases are different only with respect to the stage in life at which they occur. So I am explaining about the rickets. So that rickets occur in the growing bones of children and osteomalacia in the bones of the adults. So basically both have the difference, that is rickets occurs in the children and the osteomalacia occurs in the bones of the adults. Both conditions are primarily due to deficiency of vitamin D or a disturbance in its metabolism secondary to renal disease. So mainly the cause, if we can say the cause or we can say the different thing, that is that vitamin D deficiency causes the rickets and the osteomalacia. Now, what happened in the vitamin D deficiency? If we talk about the different methods or if we talk about the different thing in the deficiency of the vitamin D, so we have to, so I will explain about that the what is vitamin D and its metabolism. So the endogenous form of vitamin D, that is cholecalciferol, is found in the skin as a product of a cholesterol metabolism in a process requiring ultraviolet radiations. Remember, requiring ultraviolet radiations. The exogenous form of vitamin C is usually D3. The two most important nutritional useful forms of vitamin D and D2 argocalciferol and D3 cholecalciferol. Here we are talking about the ultraviolet radiation. So we all know that how we are getting the vitamin D. We are getting the vitamin D by the synthesizing, by itself the skin is synthesizing vitamin D. Now, vitamin D deficiency rickets occur when the metabolites of vitamin D are deficient. That is about the vitamin D3 and D2. Less commonly, a dietary deficiency of calcium or phosphorus may also produce rickets. Here, the vitamin D3 deficiency is the vitamin D3 deficiency leads rickets. And now we are talking about the dietary deficiency of the calcium or phosphorus. They can also, or they may also produce the rickets. So, in steps in activation. So, what happened in the activation? You can say the basic forms. So, basic forms of the vitamin D2 and D3 are inactivated unlit hydroxylated. The first step of hydroxylation, 25 hydroxylation, occurs in the liver, and the second step, 1 hydroxylation, occurs in the kidney. So that is 125 dihydroxylated form is active form is the active form and stimulates the intestinal absorption of calcium and also acts on the bone. So here absorption of calcium and also acts on the bone. We can also can say that the active form is 125 dihydroxylated form is the active form and it helps in the intestinal absorption of the calcium. Now, what is the control? Now, the most sensitive of the physiological actions of 1,25-dihydroxy vitamin D is to increase intestinal absorption of calcium. Remember that it is to increase intestinal absorption of calcium. The action of vitamin D metabolized in bone tissue is controversial. Now, to calcify the bone matrix, now we need to require to calcify the bone matrix properly. Small amounts of metabolites are necessary along with the sufficient calcium. We can say that we have to if the bone should be strong or the bone matrix should be calcified, so small amounts of metabolites are necessary along with the sufficient calcium. Means calcium is required for the calcification of the bone matrix, but the phosphorus is also required for the bone matrix. So here about the vitamin D and its metabolism, which can leads to the, you can say, which can lead to rickets, or you can say deficiency can also leads to the rickets. It is the thing, the vitamin D3 cholecalciferol is formed in the skin from a derivative of cholesterol under the stimulus of the ultraviolet B light. Just I have explained about the ultraviolet B radiation. Now, natural nutritional sources of vitamin D are limited primarily to fatty ocean-going fishes. Sources of vitamin D: ultraviolet light, cod liver oil. Cod is the name of the fish, and its liver contains that oil which has the vitamin D. Ergosterol, vitamin D2, and dairy milk is fortified with vitamin D, 400 international unit per liter. Now, human milk also contains the little vitamin D less than 20 to 40 international per liter. So here we are talking about the sources of vitamin D and about the vitamin D, and I have discussed about the vitamin D metabolism. So now rickets, it's in the brief introduction, or we can say I will just tell you about the rickets. What is rickets? Is a growing or disease of a growing skeleton characterized by failure of normal mineralization seen prominently at the growth plates, resulting in the softening of the bones and development of the deformity. Now we are talking about the pathophysiology of the rickets. Next slide is required, the pathophysiology of the rickets. So it is just I have explained about the intestinal absorption of the rickets, internal intestinal absorption of the calcium, in which I'm talking about that vitamin D and its metabolism, how it is affected. So it is in the steps in activation. The basic form vitamin D2 and D3 are inactive until hydroxylated. A first step of hydroxylation, that is 25 hydroxylation, occurs in the liver, and the second step 1 hydroxylation occurs in the kidney, and 125 dihydroxylated form is the active form and stimulates the intestinal absorption of the calcium and also acts on the bone. And if this intestinal absorption does not occur, then it leads to the vitamin D3 deficiency, and that leads to the your rickets. Now, cholecalciferol, vitamin D3 is formed in the skin from 5-dihydrotachysterol. So this is the formula. We can say that vitamin D3 cholecalciferol, and cholecalciferol is formed in the skin, under the skin, from 5-dihydrotachycholesterol. Now this is steroid which is present beneath the skin. This steroid undergoes hydroxylation in 2 steps. The first hydroxylation occurs at position 25 in the liver, producing calcidolol, 25 hydroxycholecalciferol. And the second hydroxylation occurs in the kidney at the firm position, where it undergoes hydroxylation to the active metabolite calcitriol, 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol. And now calcitriol act as 3 known sites to tightly regulate the calcium metabolism. It is important for the calcium metabolism. It promotes the absorption of calcium and phosphorus from the intestine. As we have discussed, we have to absorption of the calcium and other component to enhance the bone matrix. So it promotes absorption of calcium and phosphorus from the intestine. Now it increases reabsorption of phosphate in the kidney. So it is required to increase the reabsorption of the phosphate in the kidney, and it acts on bone to release calcium and phosphate. So this is also important about the calcitriol. Now, epidemiology, the frequency increasing internationally. Yes, it is increasing internationally. Or if we discuss about a few things more, then there are several different type of rickets. There are different bony abnormalities associated with rickets, but all are due to poor mineralization with calcium and phosphate. The active form of vitamin D is synthesized by skin cells when exposed to sunlight. So this is children and adolescents who do not obtain enough vitamin D, though milk and food should receive vitamin D as supplements. So infants who are exclusively breastfeed should receive vitamin D supplements also. So this is, you can say, classical nutritional rickets is also medically termed as osteomalacia, or we talk about the pathophysiology. There are several subtypes of rickets, including phosphatic rickets, vitamin D resistance rickets, we can say, renal or kidney rickets, renal osteodystrophy, and most commonly nutritional rickets. So this is about the rickets and osteomalacia. So before moving to further slide or further epidemiology, I will just give you a brief account of the history of the rickets. So what is the history of rickets? So what happened in the Roman descriptions of individual with rickets can be found as early as 2nd century, and in the 1640s the condition was well documented as a common born element across England. Unfortunately, or you can say scientifically, proven causes of ricket was not identified until the 1920s and by 1930s. So, public health initiatives in recommended fortifying milk with vitamin D and cod liver oil as the nutritional supplement for young infants and children. This led to near eradication of rickets in the United States and other industrialized nations. Unfortunately, rickets has made a comeback and is still common in less developed nations. Moreover, for a variety of reasons, ricket is seen more frequently amongst infants and children living in industrialized nations, among often among more affluent populations. So this is the history of rickets. So that in 1930s or after the 1930s, public health initiators recommended that vitamin fortifying milk with vitamin D and cod liver oil for the supplement of a young infant and children. But it remain persisted in today's situation also, that eradication of rickets in the United States and other industrialized nation is required to eradicate in that country still now. Now, if we talk about, and this is about the history or epidemiology, the frequency increasing internationally, as I have discussed about the history, children to wear sunscreen while outdoors. In these days, or you can say in this advanced stages of the cases, children will wear sunscreen, so they have the covering on the skin of a chemical covering of the on the skin, and the you can say vitamin D synthesizing is not occurring under the skin. Now, children spend more time indoors watching televisions, playing electronic games instead of playing outdoors. If the children are not exposed to the sunlight or ultraviolet light, then how the you can say how we can go for the vitamin D synthesis itself in our body. Now, if we talk about clinical presentation. Now, clinical presentation. This is about the clinical presentation. Before that, I will explain about the few things about rickets. So there are the two types of the rickets, type 1 and type 2. In type 1, there is either a deficiency of vitamin D or defect in the metabolism, or in type 2 rickets, it occurs due to deficiency of phosphates in the extracellular fluid because of defective tubular reabsorption or diminished phosphate intake. Here, calcium and phosphorus both are important factors for the deficiency of the rickets. So it is decided by the type 1 and type 2. Now, nutritional deficiency continues to be commonest cause of rickets in developing countries because of poor social economic condition. So this is about the causes of the rickets, and mainly risk factors for the development of rickets. You can say we can also include before the clinical symptoms, that what are the risk factors which can develop the rickets. These are the premature birth, low level of vitamin D, calcium, and phosphorus, and a limited sun exposure. When the people who are living especially in high and low altitude, there is less sunlight light over there, so there is no exposure of the sunlight and no synthesis of the vitamin D. Hereditary metabolic diseases, for example, X-linked hypophosphatic rickets, darkly pigmented individuals, those who are darkly pigmented individuals, infant born to vitamin D deficient mother. These are the risk factors for the you can say of rickets. If the mother is vitamin D deficient, then if the child she is carrying, a pregnant lady who is carrying the fetus is not supplying the proper calcium deposition or proper calcium supplement to the child for the maintenance of the bone or for the formation of the reabsorption of the calcium and phosphorus in the bones. Renal or kidney diseases that affect calcium and phosphorus absorption. Yes, okay. If the kidney has some defect or some deficiency, then it affects the calcium and absorption in the bone. So that leads to the rickets also. Nutrition, suboptimal calcium and phosphorus intake or low vitamin D seen in certain vegan diets due to avoidance of milk or dairy products. Some people avoid the milk or dairy products because in the vegan diets, and soy milk and breakfast cereals fortified with vitamin D are helpful. So these are soya milk and the breakfast cereals, they have the vitamin D supplements, so they are very much helpful. But if the people are ignoring this nutrition, that they are having the some optimal calcium and phosphorus in intake should be low. So the next slide is about clinical presentation. As you can see in the diagram, the clinical presentation of the child. Now we will go for the clinical presentation or clinical features one by one. So some nutritional rickets, if we talk about the nutritional rickets, it occurs in children about 1 year old. It may occur in older children and malabsorption syndrome. Following other clinical features, we will talk about the craniotapes. These are the manifestation of rickets seen in young infants. Pressure over the soft membranous bone of the skull give the feeling of a ping pong ball over being compressed and released. So here it is the craniotapes. This is the manifestation of rickets in young infant. We can see in the young infant pressure over the soft membranous bone of the skull over here and gives the feeling of a ping pong ball being compressed. Means it will feel like that we can compress that bone and feel like ping pong, that it should be pressed and released, pressed and released. So it is the compressed and released, compressed and released of the ping pong ball. So this is the craniotapes. We can see in the diagram also. So this is, you can protruding forehead, and over here we can go for the craniotapes. Large head is over, large head, you can examine that the large head is present in the clinical presentation. Pigeon chest. Pigeon chest is, we can say that the pigeon chest is the shape of the pigeon. It's like the over, it's like the formation of the sternum is more moving more forwardly, or you can say we can feel that it is just seems like a pigeon chest. Curved humerus, because of the bone lacking of the bone density, or you can say the bone matrix is not that much strong, you can feel that the curved humerus is there. Kyphotic curve is present in the child. Depressed rib is there. Pigeon chest means the sternum go outwards, but the chest becomes the ribs become the depressed. Curved radius and ulnar, enlarged epiphysis at wrist. Protruding abdomen, yes, this is the most commonly you can see that protruding abdomen you can observe in that cases. And curved femur, all the you can say all the strong bones are in the curved forms, as they are having the lack of the matrix, dense matrix. And large epiphysis at ankle, and large epiphysis is present at ankle. Curved tibia and femur, these bones should be straightened up, or these bones are in the properly shape, but these are in the curved shape. So this is the clinical presentation of the ricket child. And as I will explain about all these clinical features, if we, so this is the bossing of the skull. Bossing of the frontal and parietal lobe become evident after the age of 6 months, and that can leads to the large skull. Broadening of the end of the long bones. The long bones will have the broadening and most prominently around the wrist and knees. It is seen around 6 to 9 months of age. Delayed teeth eruption. This is the another clinical feature. It is the delayed teeth eruption noticed in infants. Harrison's sulcus. So at horizontal depression along the lower part of the chest corresponding to the insertion of the diaphragm. Here we can feel that the Harrison sulcus is present over the horizontal depression will be present and along the lower part of the chest with corresponding to the insertion of the diaphragm. Now pigeon chest. I have shown you about the pigeon chest. The sternum become the prominent. Rachitic rosary. This is the you can say this is a feature. Rachitic rosary. The costochondral junctions on the anterior chest wall become prominent, giving rise to appearance of a rosary. What do you mean by rosary? Rosary is the you can say the necklace of the beads. If the beads, it's just like a beads necklace. So we will feel that at the anterior chest walls, costochondral junctions will be prominent, and these costochondral junctions, prominent costochondral junctions, will give the appearance of a rosary. Muscular hypotonia. The child's abdomen become protuberant, pot belly. As you have seen in the diagram, there is a pot belly. Child's abdomen become protuberant because of marked muscular hypotonia. Visceroptosis and lumbar lordosis occur. So this is the visceroptosis, and lumbar lordosis can also occur because of the muscular hypotonia. Deformities are there because as such as I have shown you that the humerus and the tibia and fibula and femur is in the curved shape. Deformities of the long bone resulting in knock knees, bow legs is common presentation of rickets once the child starts walking. So this is about the clinical representation. Yes, this is the knock knee deformity, which we can say that the Genu welcome. This is the why it is called the knock knee deformity, because the knees are knocking to each other, or you can say knees are attaching, or you can say binding to the each other while walking. You can see that, or while standing, the because of the concavity, or you can say because of the bones are not straight, as in the dense matrix is not present. Now bow leg deformity, it is in the shape of the bow leg. Genu varum, we can say that it is opposite of the knock knees. The knees are in the knock position, here is the knees are in the bow leg position. Wrist enlargement, as we have already, as I've already mentioned, that epiphysis will be strong, bigger, or knock knees or bow legs, common presentation will be there. So broadening of the long end of the bones, most prominently around the wrist and knees, it is around 6 to 9 months of the ages. Rib beading, rachitic rosary. You can see that in the diagram. So it seems like that the pearls are arranged in this in the ribs, or you can say the nodes can be presentation. Nodes are presenting over there. Rib beading is there. Rachitic rosary. We denominate that the rachitic rosary is there. Frontal bossing. The frontal the head of the head shape is become the bossing of the skull. Bossing of the frontal and parietal bones become evident after the age of 6 months. And the next is tibial bowing. It is about the bow legs, the curvature of the tibia bone. This is about the bow legs. Scoliosis. It is also seen in the rickets patients. Scoliosis, the spinal shape of the S shape of the spine will become in the scoliosis. This occurs in the nutritional deficiency diseases also, and scoliosis also in the other spinal disorders also. Harrison sulcus and pot belly. This is the pot belly. You can see that the pot belly, the protuberance of the abdominal belly. Now, this is about the rickets. So we can go for the this is the clinical features and other symptoms which we can see that. And now if we talk about the differential diagnosis. So differential diagnosis includes all these things. This is hypophastasia. Hypophastasia. It is a rare genetic disorder characterized by impaired mineralization. It is the same thing, calcification of bones and teeth. Problems occur because mineralization is the process by which bones and teeth take up calcium and phosphorus required for proper hardness and strength. So hypophosphatasia is also, it is a differential diagnosis, means all the factors or all the features are also present over in the rickets also, but it can be diagnosed as the hypophosphatasia. This is the Janssen syndrome, hypophosphatemia, vitamin D resistant rickets, severe calcium deficiency, severe phosphorus deficiency. So these are the deficiency, or if you have the severe calcium deficiency, but there is there is not that is not ricket because of the severe calcium deficiency of another region of it may be the nutritional deformity, it may be the nutritional you can say nutritional supplement is not providing properly up to the calcium, severe phosphorus deficiency is there, so reabsorption is there, matrix is strong, but deficiency is there because deficiency is because of the nutritional supplement is not provided to the patient, or to the infant or to the child. Now approach consideration. Serum measurements in the workup for rickets may include the following. We will go for this consideration that we will measure the serum measurements in the workup for rickets. So this is the calcium measurements, phosphorus measurements, alkaline phosphatase, thyroidehormone calculation, 25 hydroxyvitamin D, 125 dihydroxyvitamin D. These all are in the serum management measurement. We have to investigate all these things in the serum or serum investigation, so that we can approach the patients for a confirmed diagnosis that the patient is suffering from the rickets or any other deficiency diseases. Radiography. Radiography is indicated in patients with the rickets. So about the serum chemistry. So in if we talk about the serum chemistry, the calcium or ionized fraction is low, and the calcidolol, that is the 25 hydroxyvitamin D, is also low. Parathyroid hormone is elevated. Phosphorus level is invariably low for age, and alkaline phosphatase levels are uniformly elevated. So these are the serum chemistry form. These are the things which we can found in the serum investigation in the ricket patients. Radiography. In radiography, cupping of the metaphysis will be there, and fraying of the edge, widening of the tissues, hypomineralization of the bone. So if we will go for the radiological features, so early radiological changes are observed in the lower end of the radius L, as we have studied about that, widening of the wrist will be there. So X-ray of both wrist and knees, anterior posterior views are used for screening a patient suspected of rickets. Now, delayed appearance of epiphysis will be there. It is in the radiological features. Widening of the epiphyseal plates. Normal width of the epiphyseal plates is 2 to 4 mm. In ricket, it is increased because of the excessive accumulation of uncalcified osteoid at the growth plate. Okay, cupping of the metaphysis, as we have talking about the cupping of the metaphysis also. So cupping of the metaphysis is there. Cupping of the metaphysis shows what? Normally the metaphysis meet the epiphyseal plate as a smooth line of sclerosis, zone of provisional calcification. In rachitic bone, the line is absent and the metaphyseal end appears irregular. The cartilage cell, what are the cartilage cell accumulating at the growth plate? Now, accumulating at the growth plate create a depression of the soft metaphyseal end, giving rise to a cup shape appearance. That's why it is called the cupping. So this is about the cupping of the metaphysis. Now, the next factor is about widening of the osteotissue, as I've told you in the radius and ulna. There is the widening of the tissues will be there. because of the whitening of the apophyseal plates and the uncalcified deposition or the accumulation of the uncalcified osteoid at the growth plate. Hypomineralization of the bones. It is usually hypomineralization means the mineralization, including the calcium and phosphorus, is in the lesser quantity, and that becomes the bone matrix is the less. So that can leads to the hypomineralization of the bone, and that can also causes the rickets or osteomalacia. So and the next two factors are there: the splaying of the metaphysis. The end of the metaphysis is splayed because of the pressure by the cartilage cells accumulating at the growth plate. Rare fraction of the diaphyseal cortex occurs late. Bone deformities will be there. Knock knees, bow legs, coxa vara are common deformities in the older children. In if we talk about the other investigations, serum calcium is usually normal or low, but serum phosphate is low, but serum alkaline phosphate is high. So, and these are the metaphyseal region. You can see that the anterior, posterior, and radiological lateral radiographs of the wrist of a wrist and wrist of an 8-year-old boy with rickets demonstrate cupping and fraying of the metaphyseal region. See, you can radiograph in a 4-year-old girl with rickets depicted, bow in the legs causes by loading. Radiographs of a knee of a 3.6-year-old girl with hypophosphatemia depict severe fraying of the metaphysis. You can see the severe fraying of the metaphysis. Now, treatment and management. Yes, this is important, as we all know that we have to go if the disease is diagnosed, we will go for the treatment of the management. It consists of a medical and orthopedic treatment both. So medical treatment, if we talk about the medical treatment, the treatment of rickets may be administered gradually over several months or in a single doses of 15,000 microgram 600,000 unit of vitamin D. So how will we, how, what are the treatment procedures, or you can say what are the medical treatment we will go through that. The administration of vitamin D 600,000 units as a single oral dose induces rapid healing. If the line of healing or a line of sclerosis on the metaphyseal side of the growth plate is not seen on X-ray within 3 to 4 weeks of therapy, same dose may be repeated. Again, the person will be administered of that of the vitamin D unit is the 600,000 units. Now, in cases where the child responds to vitamin D therapy, maintenance dose of 400 international unit of vitamin D is given per day. If there is no response even after the second dose, a diagnosis of the refractory rickets is made. So such patients are evaluated in detail by multi-specialty team of nephrologist, endocrinologist, and physician. So this is about the medical treatment. And if we go for the, if the gradual method is chosen, again the 122, 125 to 250, 500 to 10,000 international unit is given daily for 2-3 months until healing is well established. Alkaline phosphate concentration is approaching in the reference range. And next is about the, if the vitamin dose is administered in a single day, it is usually divided into 4 or 6 oral doses. Intramuscular injection is also available. Nutritional rickets. This is about the vitamin D deficiency, but what happened in the nutritional rickets? In nutritional rickets, phosphorus level rises in 96 hours. Radiographic healing is visible in 6 to 7 days. So this is about the vitamin D. Now, rickets medication. Vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin used to prevent or treat vitamin D deficiency. Now, cholecalciferol, vitamin D3, D drop kits, delta D3, single day doses of 15,000 mcg, or you can say 600,000 unit, which is usually divided into 4 to 6 oral doses. An intramuscular injection is also available for this. Alternative regimen is to give 125 to 250 mcg or 500 to 10,000 unit daily for 2 to 3 months. Now, cholecalciferol, okay. So it is about the medical management. But what about the orthopedic treatment? Now it is it is also a case of the orthopedic cases. So orthopedic treatment, because it consists of the bony deformity, so it is required for correction of deformity by conservative or operative methods. Conservative methods, mild deformity correct spontaneously as rickets heals. Some surgeons use specially designed splints, mermaid splints, or orthopedic shoes for correction of the knee deformities. Operative methods, moderate or severe deformities often require surgery. This can be performed anytime after 6 months of starting the medical treatment. Now, corrective osteotomies, depending upon the nature of deformities, are performed. So, there are the methods, there are the advanced methods also for the orthopedic treatment for the requirement of the conservation, correction of the deformities. So, these are the basically treatment management we can go for the after the medical treatment, after the giving the vitamin D supplements or vitamin D supply by intramuscular or by any other by by the drop method. So this will leads to the medical management also, orthopedic management also. So now we have discussed about the few things about the rickets. Then now these are the multiple choice questions. So we know that when we study any topic, we have to discuss the multiple choice questions or related any other questions to discuss and to know about that how much we got to know about this topic. So this is about the rickets of prematurity is associated with the first question is this: rickets of prematurity is associated with a first option hypocalcemic convulsions, use of furosemide diuretic, vitamin D deficiency in the mother. All the options are of the correct. So this is the correct answer is the D. Now, if we if I will try to explain about that, what is the how this is the correct answer. So all of the options given correct. Why? Newborn infants have poor parathormone responses to falling calcium level, and this immature physiological response is more marked in preterm infants. Now, vitamin D nutrition is dependent on maternal supply also in utero. So, infants of vitamin D deficiency mothers are likely to suffer from vitamin D deficiency as well, and may show sign of the rickets, whether preterm or in the term. Difficulty maintaining calcium requirements in preterm infants, poor calcium absorption, possibly increased calcium loss from the kidney due to diuretics given to manage fluid overload with continue to poor bone mineralization and the clinical features of the rickets in the preterm infant. Now, young infants are prone to convulsions in association with hypocalcemia. So that's why all the options are the of the correct. We can go for the all the options. Now, second question is about iron deficiency in children. Explains the fall in hemoglobin levels in the first 4 months of the life. Second option is that is more common in boys than girls, can affect school progress. When what happened in the iron deficiency in children? So the correct answer is the C. How it is the correct answer? Iron deficiency is common in young children once they are in past the first few months of the life when hemoglobin levels fall from higher levels at the birth. Iron is better absorbed as heme than as the inorganic iron. Vitamin C given in association with the source of iron improves absorption. Means if we are taking the vitamin C with the with iron also, that it helps in the improving of the absorption of iron and maintaining the iron in the reduced ferrous state. Young children may have rather fussy eating habits with low intakes of meat and fruits or vegetables. Low iron intake accompanied by high requirement is due to rapidly increasing tissue mass and increasing need for iron for hemoglobin contribution to the prevalence of iron deficiency in young children. So iron absorption is also reduced in fever, which is common in small children. So this is that can affect the school progresses. Now the next question is about premature infant. So what happened in the premature infant have higher percent body fat than term infants. Cannot swallow until 35 weeks gestation. should be given vitamin K as soon as after the birth? Now, the correct answer is the C, should be given vitamin K as soon as after the birth. Now, premature infants, what happen in the premature infants? They have exacerbated immaturity compared with the term infants. Glucoordination of bilirubin, creating the water-soluble bilirubin, which can be excreted by the bile, is poor even in the term infants. Enteral feeding stimulates the maturation of function in the newborn liver, but premature infants are often fed parenterally. Now, at the birth, infants have no colonic flora to synthesize vitamin K. Placental transfer is variable, and low levels of vitamin K are not common. Now, in the premature are at particular risk of the intracerebral hemorrhage. So, need to of optimal coagulation. Now, parenteral vitamin K should be followed up by the further doses, enteral or parenteral, as clinically indicated. So this is why we should be given, the infant should be given vitamin K as soon as possible after birth if the child is premature. Now the next slide is of, now in adolescence, brain growth is faster than at in any stage in life. Peak bone mass occurs in adolescent. What happens is brain growth is faster than at any stage in life. Second option is peak bone mass occurs before the growth spurt ends. Girls physiologically increase their percentage body weight. Type 2 obesity related diabetes remains a very rare problem. So correct answer is the C. Girls physiologically increases their percentage body weight. Now, in early infancy, in pre-pubertal period, and in female adolescence, tissue deposition has a relatively high proportion of fat to lean tissue deposition than at other stages. Other ages, we can say that for adolescent boys, growth is associated with rapid lean tissue deposition and a dramatic physiological increase in lean body composition. For adolescent girls, an increased fat deposition leads to increased body weight as fat providing potential stores against the nutritional demands of the pregnancy and lactation. So this is the difference in that girls physiologically increases that percentage body weight. Now the next is the question is prenatal programming. It explains the rise in obesity in the preschool years. So prenatal programming, it explains the rise in obesity in the preschool years may be affected through the epigenetic effect of uterine nutritional inadequacy, causes high blood pressure in young children, only affects low birth weight child. So prenatal programming may be affected. The correct answer is B, may be affected through the epigenetic effect of intrauterine nutritional inadequacy. So, as growth is if we are talking about the prenatal programming, the mechanism whereby the prenatal programming occurs is unclear, but possible mechanism include DNA methylation and histone modification leading to alteration in the expression of genes in the developing fetus without affecting the DNA molecular structure. Now, low level of particular nutrients in the pregnant woman could form some of the factors contributing the epigenetic change in the long-term effect of the fetus. So it may be affected through the epigenetic effects of the intrauterine nutritional inadequacy. Now next is assessing growth in routine practice should be height only, weight and height, or head circumference. So how we are assessing the growth in the routine practice, it should be assessing by the weight and height. Next is the normal growth can be defined as a BMI between 75 and second BMI centile, 91st and second BMI centile, 99.6 and 0.4 BMI centile, 75 and 25 BMI centile. So correct answer is the 91 and second BMI centile. All babies lose weight after birth. You should be concerned when weight loss is 5%, weight loss is less than 10%, birth weight is not regained by the day 7, and weight loss in more than 10% of the baby birth weight is not regained by day. The correct answer is we have to be concerned when the weight loss is more than 10% of the body weight which is not gained by the day. So how it is? We can say it is a part of normal growth pattern for newborn babies to lose some weight after birth. 80% of the babies will have regained their birth weight by the time they are 2 weeks old. A loss of more than 10% of the birth weight are not regarding the weight loss by day 14 should be investigated further, particularly looking for feeding problems or a possible underlying medical concern. So this is about that we have to concern about when all the babies lose birth after lose weight after birth. The next ninth is question is there, and it is about current recommendations are that all babies should be exclusively breastfed until around 6 months. Solid should be introduced at the 4th month of age. Cow's milk is appropriate for all children from 6 months. So now we can go for that. The correct answer is A. All babies should be exclusively breastfed until around 6 months. So it is a recommendation from the Department of Health and WHO also that baby should be exclusively breastfed until around 6 months of age. Now, some mothers cannot or choose not to breastfeed at all exclusively. They should not be made to feel that they are not good mothers. However, solid should be not be introduced for any babies until around 6 months of the age. Now, next question is children who are obese should follow a different diet to the rest of the family. Eat the same and take more exercises, reduce their total energy intake, increase their activity level and reduce their screen time, eat more fruits and vegetables. Now, reduce their total energy intake, increase their activity level and reduce their screen time. That is the correct answer is the C. Now we have talked about rickets, we have talked about its medical management, clinical features, and other epidemiology and other features. What is the conclusion we can go for that? So rickets is usually attributed to vitamin deficiency. Recent studies have implicated dietary calcium deficiency in the etiology. Information on relative efficacy of calcium, vitamin D, or both together in healing of rickets is limited. Now, to study or effect of treatment with calcium, vitamin D, or a combination of these two on the healing of a nutritional rickets in young children. The mean dietary intake of calcium in all cases was low, and mean serum 25-dihydroxycholecalciferol D level was this much, and 82.1% of patients had serum vitamin D levels indicative of vitamin D deficiency after 6 and 12 weeks of treatment. Radiological and biochemical evidence of healing rickets were observed in all treatment groups, albeit to a variable extent. Now, combined endpoint of a normal serum alkaline phosphatase and complete radiological healing at 12 weeks was observed in 50% subjects on combination therapy as compared with the 15.7% subjects on vitamin D alone and 11.7% of the calcium alone. Conclusion: children with rickets had a low serum vitamin D level and a low dietary calcium intake. The best therapeutic response was seen with the combination of vitamin D and calcium than either of them given alone. Now, references of the books, we can go for that. References is the Mackay, C.P. Patel. This is of the book of the bone and mineral disorders. There are a lot of books on the rickets also. So you can go for the different guidelines of the Wagner CL, and if you want to go to the Indian author, you can concern about the J. Maheshwari. It has the brief summarize information about the rickets, or you can say introduction of the rickets also. So thank you so much for listening up to this video. For more details or for more other further inquiry about the topics, or if you have any doubt, just drop your message in the comment box. Please share, subscribe, and like the video. Thank you so much. This is Dr. Ruchika Pal, Assistant Professor in Suresh Kyan Bihar University.